Yeah. Yeah, Wax's podcast, episode 71. Why didn't I do a podcast last week, you ask yourself? Well, sometimes shit just doesn't work out. I tried to do a podcast last week. I hit record on several occasions and tried to talk, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I just couldn't get the words out. I'd get a couple minutes in, I'd just be like, this is stupid, and I'd stop. There's something about this shit, you know, it sounds, this might sound stupid, but for some reason, sometimes I just can't do this shit. I just can't pick it up. I can't pick up the mic and, like, have my words flow and feel right. And if it sounds dumb and it sounds, like, more self-deprecating than even I normally am, and, like, to an extreme point where you're like, whoa, this dude's kind of depressing, I just can't do it. So last week, that happened. I tried to make a podcast, couldn't do it. I'm back here this week with podcast episode 71. And I do have a lot of things to talk about. First of all, I'm going to probably have to leave my house because the fucking neighbor lady next to me, that can probably hear me right fucking now since I share a thin wall with her, has had it up to here with my noise. She is an older lady. I would say probably 59 to 65, somewhere in that age range. Either that or she's younger than that and partied a lot as a child, or she's older than that and she keeps herself in really good shape. But, you know, yeah, she's just had enough of me, man. She's old, and I don't even like doing this around her, you know, like, I know that she's next door. I don't even like recording this podcast knowing that she can probably hear me right now. You know, if you have an apartment building, the walls are going to be relatively thin. The walls aren't made out of concrete. The walls aren't made of steel. They're made of fucking drywall. And, you know, you have the occasional stud, the 2x4s that go vertically. The occasional one, depending on the code of the building, the code of your city, how far away they're spaced. But you pretty much have 2 pieces of drywall, possibly 4, some shit like that. I don't fucking know. Layer of paint, maybe a little wallpaper. I don't know, maybe a little stucco if you have that kind of wall, but I don't. I just have a regular ass wall, and I know that when she's like just watching a movie or something, I can kind of hear it. So if I'm over here bumping my shit, of course she can hear it, and she's been hearing it since I've lived here. And last week, she voiced her frustration on a Wednesday at 3 p.m. I was in here actually just working on music. Didn't think I was being that loud, but she voiced her complaint. Relatively politely, and, you know, said she was working. She works from home as well, and she voiced her complaint relatively politely. And then me and my boy Davey, who was over here working with me, are just kind of like, well, what the fuck do we do now? I just bought all this new fucking studio equipment. I might have to be forced to get a studio place, but I don't really feel like paying for an apartment because my apartment's pretty expensive. And paying for that plus the studio is going to put me in the fucking poorhouse. And that happened Wednesday at 3. And then Saturday at about 9 p.m., EOM was over here. And we weren't really working. We were just listening to some of his music that he has for his album. And I guess I had to turn it up pretty loud. Keep in mind, this is Saturday night at 9 p.m. It's really not an inappropriate time, in my opinion, to play your music loud. But she fucking lost it. It was not polite this time. She turned into like this old lady, evil Skeletor kind of deal. Just a possessed senior citizen knocking at my door. And it wasn't Halloween, you know? If it was Halloween, maybe I'd be like, wait a second, lady. Is this a trick? I don't have any treats, so you must be hitting me with the trick, right? Is that right, you fucking old lady? Sorry to all the old ladies listening, because I know that that's a really big part of my fan base. In other words, sorry, Mom, because you're probably about the same age as her. But, you know, to be fair, Mom, because I know you're listening, because you listen to every episode of my podcast now. You look much better than her for your age, Mom. So take that into consideration. Even though she probably is a little bit skinnier than you, honestly. So, you know, if you want to listen to my podcast, you're going to get the truth. I don't, you know, I keep it real here on Wax's podcast, episode 71. I don't like to speak the bullshit. So, Mom, if you're listening, this lady is a little skinnier than you. Not saying you're fat. You know, even though some people would say you're fat. You know, and when I say that, I only mean that people say, yo, your mom's so fat. I don't mean people are actually referring to you. They're actually referring to my fictional mom that I've talked about before on this podcast. For those of you that didn't hear that episode, obviously, when me and EOM talk about each other's moms, we each have two moms. We have our real moms, who we know each other and love and respect them very much as human beings. And then we each have a fictional mom as well, who is extremely overweight, extremely stupid, and extremely thuggish in nature, you know. Raises pit bulls, has pit bulls fight each other in the front yard, beats up the losing pit bull, and in addition, you know, she actually takes the side of the winning pit bull and just starts beating the shit out of it with the pit bull, and then the other pit bulls and her friends all join in and just becomes like a stomp to the death. And when she's finished, she just takes a big-ass bite out of the neck and just holds the pit bull upside down and just drinks the blood like some kind of fucking canine vampire. That's what EOM's fictional mom is like. His real mom's awesome. His real mom's just a very nice, respectable woman who raised a fine gentleman and now is living her life doing everything right. Same thing with my mom. But don't get those two things confused. But to keep it real, this lady just is kind of skinny. That being said, her skin, you know, is not the best looking. You know, it looks like she's been living in Venice a little bit too long. Probably didn't go to enough skin doctor appointments where that they said that even though the sun is good for you in small doses, and the sun is what keeps our world going around, there's a reason that human beings require shelter. And one of those things is that if you sit out in the sun all day long, your whole life, you know, while you're, you know, knowing this lady, she probably was here in the 60s, probably had she's probably a Jan and Dean groupie, had a lot of couple run-ins with the Beach Boys as well, you know, out there in the sun singing fucking California Dreaming. I know that's not the Beach Boys. That's the Mamas and the Papas. Don't think I don't know my music history, but she's out there. Little surf lady from Pasadena. Just getting fucking railed by Brian Wilson back in her day. But, you know, the more that you're out in the sun, getting railed by surf rock stars of yesteryear, the more that you do that, the more susceptible you are to the ultraviolet rays of the sun, which could cause you some type of skin cancer, or if not skin cancer, just when you're in your early 60s, you're going to have some fucked up, blotchy, hangy, way too tan, looking like burnt, looking like somebody poured Old Bay seasoning on it, then just made that the look. Not like it actually is ashy, like it has seasoning on it, but like if you poured Old Bay on some relatively already tan skin and took a picture of it, and then instead of it being a skin that had Old Bay on it, it just looks like it has it. Like it's like the picture of Old Bay is on it, if that makes any sense. That's what her skin looks like. So anyway, she comes over here Saturday night and she loses her fucking mind. And she tells me yells at me, talking about how quiet the neighborhood used to be and how it used to be a great place to live until I got here. And she can't stand living next to me and all this shit. And I already know what a lot of you guys are thinking. A lot of you fucking tough guys are out there saying to yourself, what are you just going to let this fucking lady run you out of your house? You said earlier that you pay pretty good money to live in this apartment. It's a good area. It's really close to the beach. It's Venice, California. It's a fucking world-famous place. I live in a place where people go on vacation. People come here to visit and see the sights. I live here. It costs a lot to do that. How are you going to let this little fucking Halloween costume of a sun-blotched skeleton lady run you out of house and home? How are you going to do that? And I'll tell you how. When I'm in here working, making music, which I've been doing a lot of recently, I've been making some good shit, and I've actually had some days where I've made some just terrible shit recently, and just got to put that shit in the delete forever bin. But my point is, I'm over here working. That's what I got to do for a living. That's what I got to do to pay my bills, and that's what I enjoy doing. Let's be honest here. That's the whole reason I do this shit, is because I like it. And in order to do this effectively, I mean, I can do it all in headphones, but if I have somebody over to help and work with and write with and make beats with and things like that, I don't want to have like, I don't want it to be like those headphone tents at Coachella and Bonnaroo where they call it the silent disco, where everybody's wearing headphones and they just all listening to the same thing, but you can't hear it out loud just in your headphones. I don't want it to be like that. It's not organic. Plus, I just bought these goddamn speakers. You know, I'm not gonna be sitting here and think. You know, my point is that it's not about her being bothered. It's about you have to have your mind free. You have to have your brain completely free of all outside sources to really make music to the best of your ability. And if I'm here thinking like, oh, I wonder if she's hearing this. I wonder if this is bothering her. I wonder if blah, blah. And even just thinking about her at all fucks up the whole process. So I've been living here 2 years. And I think that I'm going to get the fuck out of here, y'all. It's like September. What is it today? September 24th. And I got to give 30 days notice. I'm on a month-to-month lease at this point. I've lived here for 2 years. The first year I was on a year lease, and then it's been month-to-month ever since then. But you still got to give 30 days notice before you get out. So I'll probably spend the next month looking for something. I've already started looking for something. And get out of here at the end of October. Now the problem is I don't know where to go. I like living here. I like living on the west side. I like living close to the beach and all that. But like I said, it's an expensive place to live. And it's also a crowded place to live. So no matter where you live, if you live in an apartment, you're going to have people, you know, you're going to share walls with people. And for anybody who's been a fan of my shit for a long time or listened to my shit for a long time, I have songs about it. I have podcasts about it. I got webisodes about it. I've dealt with this whole, like, I've dealt with this, oh, you're loud in your neighborhood. Get out of here. We're complaining. I've dealt with that shit pretty much my whole life. You know, even, I mean, I was going to say since I moved out of my parents' house, but even when I lived with them, the neighbors used to complain because then we had like a drum set and shit like that. So I've always been a loud person, not only because of my work, but I like to have, when people come over, we listen to music and we drink and we party and whatever. I guess I'm maybe I should move into a college town or some shit like that. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out where to go. There's a couple different options. I could just get an apartment, hopefully a cheap one. Maybe I got to move out of Venice. Maybe I got to move to a cheaper neighborhood like Van Nuys or Koreatown or Reseda or something like that. Maybe I got to move to a cheaper town in the LA area. Just get like a little apartment and pretty much use it just to sleep at, and then find also another place that's actually like a place that I'm renting out to specifically be a studio where you're allowed to be loud 24/7 and pretty much live there and work there and try to get as many songs as I possibly can done in that environment, and then just go home and right on my fucking bed or futon or what are those beds called that those old school beds. My boy Tony has one now, as if it was still the 50s. Those beds that like pop, you pull up. They're called like Randall beds or Rumble beds or something. They pop up into the wall, and then they come down. When you're done, you can just spring them back up, and it goes right into the wall. I don't know. Why the fuck am I talking about those? Anyway, yeah, so my problem isn't that I'm not going to be able to find a place. There's always, like, dude, there's so many places always available in LA. Like, if you want to find a one-bedroom apartment, you can fucking find it. If you want to find a house, you can find it. If you want to find any kind of thing like that, you can find it somewhere. There's always people leaving. You know, if you have, you know, decent credit and a job or proof of income and all that bullshit, like, you can find something. The problem is the problem is now I have to look inside myself. It's not about looking on Craigslist. It's about looking in my heart. I have to find in my heart where I want to live and where do I want to be and how do I want my future to play itself out. Let me tell you something. Part of me wants to just go move to the desert. Like go way east and move to the desert. I've actually seen a couple examples of houses like this, like just weird houses way out east in the California desert that are on like 5 acres of land that I'm sure that I could just get and be loud all the time. The negative there is that I live in the fucking desert. It's hot as shit. Rattlesnakes, scorpions on your porch. You know, you live in the desert. You don't live near anybody. It's going to get depressing and lonely. As if living by yourself doesn't already have an element of that involved anyway. Now you're literally in the middle of nowhere, and if you do try to go to some local social event, you're going to be hanging out with a bunch of other weirdos that chose to live in the desert. So there's pros and cons there. Pros of living in the desert and having like my own place / studio way out in the desert. Pros. I can be as loud as I want. I've always dreamed about that. I've always dreamed of owning a house, really, where I can just, like, literally at 3 a.m. I could play a drum set if I want to. Do anything, Yell, scream, throw shit. People have that in America. I mean, people have it to a different level. People have shit where they build bombs and have tanks and fucking guns and they shoot shit and have... Some of them even have, like, animals they kill or fuck or whatever they do. Like, just huge, huge properties. And I get it. I think they have that kind of shit in Montana, North Dakota. I could go real hard and not even consider the fact that it has to be in Southern California. I could go super hard and be like, look, I'm going to buy a lot in North Dakota because up there it's probably mad cheap. You could probably actually, you don't rent in North Dakota, you buy. Just buy a ranch, And the pros would be I could have that dream of being as loud as I want. The main cons would be I would literally have 0 friends and family there. Nobody that I work with would be there. I'd be all alone. Additional cons, if I was in the desert, would be the heat, the wildlife, or you could, I'll take the wildlife as both the pro and the con of the wildlife kind of cancels itself out. Because while you might be bitten by a rattlesnake, it's actually kind of cool to see a fucking coyote running around. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like a pro and a con. So it kind of cancels each other out, as if you would both put the scissors down and rock, paper, scissors. You just got to go again, All right, so that's one of my options. Another option is to buy a 1-bedroom apartment, hopefully find something cheap since I won't be there a lot, and then find a studio place. Now, the pro there is if everything works out perfectly and you get a good apartment and a good studio, it's still a lot of money to have 2 places, but you can be loud whenever you want. I can go to the studio. Probably if I ever really was working late or if I decided to drink a little bit or something like that, I could have like some kind of couch in the studio that I could actually stay at the studio. I've had places like that before. I've had a couple times I had monthly lockouts where I actually rented a place, and it was usually a rehearsal space rather than a studio space. So you'd be like, picture when I first started doing the podcast, I used to do it from here. I used to have this place at ABC Studios in North Hollywood. If you picture just like a little hallway, like a hotel, and there's just all these rooms, and it's where like bands practice. There's people there that use them for recording studios, but mostly bands practice and producers that make beats go in there so they can just be loud as fuck whenever they want. God, looking at it now, I wouldn't mind having that place again because it was actually not that bad of a price. And you could be loud whenever you want, but the biggest con of that was so could the heavy metal band in the room next to you. So, you might be in there at 3 a.m. thinking you can record your little rap verse, and then all of a sudden fucking Goat Blood decides that that's when their rehearsal time is, and you can't tell Goat Blood that you can't define their schedule. They're renting the shit monthly just like you. They're paying the same amount you are, so they have just as much rights to be loud as you, and that's why they got the fucking place. It's not a recording studio. It's a rehearsal studio. And I'm telling you this because if you find a place that's an actual recording studio that you rent, like as if it's like your own spot per month, those places can be really, really expensive, whereas a rehearsal studio can be a lot cheaper. But if I get lucky and find the right spot, then hey, props to me, Then the third option is to try to find, this is what I'd really like to do, to be honest with you, to find like the ultimate place that's still in the LA area. Like if I happen to find a place in like Culver City or fucking North Hollywood or something, there's like, whoa, wait a second, this house is at the end of this weird cul-de-sac where there's no houses around it. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a needle in a haystack right now because I kind of would rather have all my recording shit just at my house and not even have to leave. And as long as I didn't have to worry about it so much, And maybe, the best thing to do would be to buy a house, but I don't think I'm in the position to do that. But even if I rented a house, the best thing to do would be like to really, really, really soundproof the shit out of a room. I think the only way to really do that though is to like get up in the walls. I don't fucking know if that's true. But enough about that. You know what happened to me recently that was funny? For the second time, the first time I just ignored it and threw the shit away. I got summons for jury duty here in Los Angeles. Jury duty. A lot of people I know get this shit. Some people do it. Some people throw away the letter. The first time that I got the letter, I decided to throw it away. But this second letter I got about a year later, it looked a lot more threatening than the first one. It acknowledged that it was the second time getting it. It acknowledged the fact that this is something you have to do, required by law. And if you don't do it, you could face incarceration and a $1,500 fine. So, it pretty much scared me into like, okay, I'll sign up. I'll call the number, I'll do the little orientation online, and I'll sign up, Even though I've talked to people since. I talked to this one old guy, and he said that he's been throwing those things away for 40 years. So maybe I'm fucking up. I mean, it makes sense if you think about it. They just send tons of jury duty notices out. And then, they expect that most people just throw them away or not turn them in. But they send so many out that even if 10% of the people return them, then they have enough people to make enough juries or whatever. I mean, really, like, are they really going to enforce that law on everybody who doesn't return their jury duty? They have time to do that. That would take up so much time and money. It would seem like that would cost just as much as running the court system. I don't know. But I did see as I've talked about before on this podcast, I have seen a documentary on the LA County Jail, and I'm not trying to go there by any means. Somehow I'll probably get arrested by at jury duty for something. I don't know what will happen, but point is I signed up, I called the number. No, I didn't call the number. You could do it online. So I registered online, and in October, you might find another missing podcast later in October because on October 20th, whatever week that is, that's the week that I do jury duty. And the only reason I'm talking about this is because of the following. When you do jury duty in California, or at least in Los Angeles, you can go online and you register. You put in the little jury ID number you got, and you just register and be like, all right, cool, I'm going to show up on that date. And then they make you take an orientation. Now, the online orientation is approximately 30 minutes worth of videos separated into different segments. They have a video like where to go, a video what to do, a video, shit just talking about what jury duty is going to be like. But the only reason I'm even talking about jury duty is because one thing that happened in the video, first of all, the video is funny in general because it looks all old school and shitty, as does the LA County website. Jesus Christ, that shit is from like GeoCities. That shit the LA County website starts with the word Angel Fire. That's what kind of website that shit looks like. Anyway, when it gets to the section in the videos about what you should wear to jury duty, first a man and a woman walk out. The man is dressed very nicely and the woman is dressed very nicely. And they say, this is a great example of something you could wear to jury duty and be dressed accordingly. Then another man and a woman comes out. And the man's got it's like business casual. The man's kind of got like a polo shirt on, some khakis. And the woman's got like a tank top and some slacks. And they look good enough, and they're like, this is also quite acceptable if you don't feel like getting as dressed up for jury duty. Because I think they don't want the jury to wear like suits and shit. They want them to look like regular people. But the reason... Then they show the third couple. The third couple is an example of what you should not wear to jury duty. Now, the woman is wearing kind of like a cutoff shirt and some short, like, jean shorts, kind of like, I guess they're trying to make her look a little skanky, and they said that she shouldn't wear that. And what made me laugh was what their example from the man was of what not to wear. He was wearing jeans, and he was wearing a white T-shirt, and all the white T-shirt said in black print was guilty. He was wearing a fucking T-shirt that said guilty on it, and that was their one example, like, don't wear shit like shit like this to court. And it was a dude in a white T-shirt and jeans, and the white T-shirt said in black, big print, big font, guilty. So, in case you were planning on rocking that shirt, then I just thought that shit was funny, man. Maybe you had to see the dude, too. The dude was actually part of the humor. Part of the humor was the dude himself. And that's my little talk about jury duty. Whoa, I'm getting a phone call from the San Francisco Peninsula area. And I don't answer phone calls that I don't know the number from anymore. So especially from the San Francisco Peninsula area. I don't know anybody from that area. Actually, I might know some people, but I'm not going to answer it. I didn't really have anything else to talk about this week. Except I'll talk about one more thing before we get into the questions. If you're a, and a lot of you guys are going to think I'm gay or whatever for this, but I don't care. If you're an attractive, fit, white male, and you're homeless and you ask me for money, I get mad. Like, what? Why? How can you look like that and expect me to give you money? Like, you were blessed with all these fucking traits that people that get ahead have. You look like a fucking politician. You look like Paul Ryan. You look like you could be the vice presidential running mate without even that much experience, just based on your fucking looks. To top it off, because you live outside, you have the tan that my neighbor had in the 60s. Not the fucking shitty tan, because you're not as old as her yet. You have the tan that she had when she was out fucking Brian Wilson and Jan and Dean and all those folks. What the fuck is, I was trying to think of the dude's name from the Rolling Stones that played drums, just because I saw a documentary with him on it the other day, but I don't think I knew his name before that, or looked at his name when he was in the documentary, but he's a funny looking dude. When I watched the Ginger Baker documentary, only because it was on Netflix, I don't give a fuck about Ginger Baker. Side note, if you watch the Ginger Baker documentary, it's a really, really fun documentary to watch. It keeps your interest. But I will say, they never showed anything that impressed me about his drum playing. They like, the whole thing was about how he was this amazing drummer and had this also crazy side life. His side life was very interesting. He just was constantly running away from everything. I thought it was interesting, and definitely could be a lesson to some people, myself included. A lesson about life is kind of like, if you watch his shit, there's a lot of like, don't do this, don't be like him, don't do what he did. There's a lot of that on there, but like another outlying thing was that he was this amazing drummer, and I wish they would have fucking showed something on the video that proved that, because the drumming that I saw was all kind of been there, done that, seen that, basic shit. I don't know. Maybe I'm a hater, and there's no maybe about it. I absolutely am a hater, but that's what I thought of Ginger Baker. Anyway, there was a guy, this was like 2 weeks ago, granted, because I haven't done a podcast in 2 weeks. I just wrote this down on my phone to talk about on the podcast. He was just, this dude was fucking really good looking as fuck. Like, he looked like, not in like the homeless dude from Venice good looking. This dude looked like a fucking politician. He just looked like, what if you looked up like attractive white male, you know how like sometimes when you watch movies, at least for me, like when I watch The Departed, sometimes like attractive white men look so similar to me that I can't tell who's who. Like if I were to watch a movie with fucking Matt Damon, Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Ben Affleck, there's better examples of ones that look the same, but when Mark Wahlberg, but more like if they all had the same hair color or whatever. But if there was enough of them in there, I wouldn't be able to tell which one was which, because there's kind of like a stereotype. I mean, that's like a Ken doll. You know what I mean? Like a fucking Ken doll. There's like a stereotypical example of like what they're supposed to look like, and this dude looked like that. He looked exactly like that. He's all fucking ripped and shit, and he fucking comes up to me asking for money, and I'm just like, dog, you don't have an excuse, man. You're all able-bodied. You're not a vet. You have no injuries. Everything was, I don't know. I'm really being an asshole right now because I don't know. Maybe he's a fucking orphan, and maybe he's ripped because when he was all his life, he's been a slave in some fucking dungeon with some old man that was gay, pedophile, and made him do push-ups and sit-ups all his life so he would look attractive. Then once he got enough strength to break out of the man's house, the man let him go because he was a pedophile. Now the guy's a man; he's not attracted to him anymore. You know what I mean? So he had just gotten out of that house. He doesn't even know what's going on in the world. He just recently found out that you need money to exist, and here I am judging him. Based on his race. Who am I? I'm being racist right now. I'm assuming he has the white privilege that maybe he was lost when he was in that fucking horrific dungeon closet for all those years, So the moral of this whole thing, really, this entire podcast, whether it be my neighbor hating me deservedly, me being a dick to this white attractive homeless man, me not signing up for jury duty the first time and even the second time having something to complain about. The moral of this podcast is that I'm an asshole, and we're going to go to shout-outs and questions. Yeah. I'm back. Let's get to these questions and shout-outs. These are shout-outs from 2 weeks. I missed the podcast last week, but I had gotten the questions ready and I'd gotten the shout-outs ready, so I might be a little bit behind now on the podcast questions. By the way, that's beatsforwax@gmail.com if you want to send me a question for the podcast. BEATSFORWAX@gmail.com. While I'm saying shit like that, if you go to my website and click on podcasts, there's a link there for Amazon.com. If you go there and click, if you want to buy something from Amazon.com, simply click on that link first and get to Amazon.com that way. They won't charge you any extra money at all. They will simply give some of what you spend on there to this podcast, which used to go to the herbal tea mixing fund for his album, but obviously his album is out right now. And the little bit of money that's in the fund, I still don't know what we're going to do with. I mean, I guess I could just take it and say that's my pay for doing the podcast, but I feel like if I was getting paid for doing this podcast by some kind of employer, I would have been fired several times by now for absence, repeated absence, and possibly even lackluster performance. So I don't want to just take it. I want to do something with it. But I think last time I talked about it, I said it was the Herbal Tea Diaper Fund because, Herbs has 2 children and is just trying to make ends meet. So feel good about yourself that way and buy Herbs some diapers. Soon his actually youngest Manny will be out of diapers, so consider it training pull-up pants or whatever fucking toddler kids wear after diapers. That's what you're buying there. So, if you want to send me an email, send it to beatsforwax@gmail.com. If you buy something on Amazon, it'd be cool if you did it that way. It won't cost you any extra money. It's just a couple extra clicks, and you're helping a brother out. So, that being said, I'm not too far behind on the emails. I'm actually, even though I missed last week, I'm actually closer. People that have been listening for a while know that usually when I'm reading the emails, it's actually emails people sent me 2 months ago and shit. But I'm definitely in September. Like I'm up to September. Let me see. Might even be. No, I don't see dates on these, but because I just copy and paste them or whatever. But I'm definitely into September. Well into September, probably. So if you send me an email, I'll be reading that motherfucker soon. Anyway, shout outs this week. Sebastian from Australia. Geoff. Geoff recommends Bill Burr's podcast, which I highly recommend. That podcast is actually what made me start podcasting. So I pretty much ripped off his entire steez and just do like a second-rate, much shittier and unfunny version of what he does. I didn't intend it to be such an exact copy. When I first started doing my podcast, I had segments. I called people and had guests and had like little segments and shit. But since then, I've just been lazy. And I just kind of do exactly what he does now, except not as funny. But I would recommend that. That's Bill Burr, Burr. He's a fucking hilarious comedian. And so that's what Geoff recommends this week. Edon H., who is going to try to not jerk off all September. Well, congratulations to you, Edon. I can't imagine doing that for an entire month. That's something I haven't yet to do in my life. But I bet you it'd be interesting to see what the first time after that month would be like. You know, an interesting thing about that me and a friend of mine were talking about. It's not like you create this significant buildup and you have 30 days worth of fucking cum inside you as far as volume of cum. You don't have that. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work like that. I don't understand the inner workings of the male body when it comes to the creation of sperm and cum and all that shit. I don't understand it. Not that I've tried to understand it. It actually is fucking hilarious how like the understanding of the reproductive system that males, well, really people in general have, is so ridiculously small. Like nobody understands the human anatomy. You just kind of, there's just fucking cum in your body. Like who, you know, you would think that like if you cum a bunch of times it gets real small, which it kind of does, but it definitely doesn't like after a week. If you don't cum for a week, it's not like you cum fucking a gallon or something. I don't know. What am I talking about? Shout outs continue with Charlotte the Giraffe, Farrell M, Carlos and Naomi from LA, Raul in Maryland, Mark in Chicago, Troy from Texas, JC from Manitoba, who recommends One Good Wheel Radio. That's all in one word, and that's a podcast. I did not get a chance to listen to that podcast. I was going to JC, but I didn't get a chance to listen to it. But he recommends it, so hey, you know, I hope it's not about how great Nazis are or something like that, because I'm pointing it out, you know. Alex from Germany, Anthony from Dublin, Ed from Chicago, Daniel from Arizona, who just celebrated his 28th birthday. Happy birthday, man. Everybody say, happy birthday, Daniel. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Daniel. Happy birthday to you. And Leopard Duke. That's the shout-outs for this week. All right, Daniel B. from England says, thank you for shouting out my Instagram. That's Do Baxter, Dobaxter. Wax, I've already gained a few followers and many likes. I know that might not seem like much, but it's all about getting my name out there. Well, that's what's up, Daniel B. from England. All right, in November, I'm attempting the Three Peaks Challenge, which is basically climbing Ben Nevis, the biggest mountain in Scotland, Scafell Pike, the biggest mountain in England, and Snowdon, the biggest mountain in Wales, all in 24 hours driving from mountain to mountain. And I'm just wondering, have you ever, or would you ever participate in any sort of, quote, adventure? First of all, how big are the mountains really if you can fucking go from Scotland to England to Wales? I mean, doesn't it take 24 hours just to do all the traveling? And you can, I mean, are these tiny hills? You can climb that shit, climb down, get in your car. I mean, Scotland to England, I mean, I guess it depends. You know, maybe they're right on the border next to each other, but it seems to me that with all that traveling and climbing, how tall could those fucking pussy-ass mountains really be if you can do it all in 24 hours? I mean, come on, man. The Tour de France takes weeks, you know? I'm just fucking with you anyway, but yeah, I would do something like that, man. I would actually do the exact same thing you're talking about. That sounds pretty fun. But I don't know, though. 24 hours in a row, though, you're right. Like, with no sleep, no nothing, that probably is pretty crazy. But maybe I'd have to do some kind of preparation. But I'd get down. I'd get down and try to do some shit like that. As far as have I ever participated in an adventure like that, I mean, I've done a lot of road trips. You know, I've done some. When I was younger, I used to do some little canoe trips. I went whitewater rafting one time. I went skydiving one time. So yeah, I do some fucking adventurous shit. Maybe not as healthy as that, but you know, thrill-seeking nonetheless. I need to do some more of that stuff. I feel like recently I haven't been living my life, man. I spend way too much time alone. I spend way too much time sitting in my house. You know, like I've talked about before, like when you're in prison and you do something wrong, you know, they put you in a solitary confinement. Some days I feel like that I've put myself in solitary confinement. I don't think that I'm living fairly. I don't think that I'm being fair to myself with the way that I'm living. And I always put pressure on myself, and I think it's not making anything better. You know, even when it comes to my music, the pressure I put on myself and the way that I feel like everything has to be perfect is actually making it worse and making me less open. So I think that I might have to, maybe I'll use this getting, not kicked out, but getting ran out of my house. Maybe I'll use this as an excuse for a 180, and maybe I'll make my life a little bit more adventurous. I don't know, man. I should start doing stuff like that. Daniel B. from England, a.k.a. Do Baxter on Instagram, who you guys should all follow. Anyway, this one is from R02S. Yo, Wax, my name is R02S, and I am a robot. My question is, when you malfunction, what should you do? Should you talk to your owner and get him to reprogram your database drives, or should you simply get an oil can and put it on your own head and then try to integrate your valve system with your D4 6 megabyte gigabyte? I'm just saying you sound like you have a robot name. Hi, my name is R02S. Internet has changed people's nicknames, hasn't it? It's like people's nickname will be like their old AOL handle or their Twitter handle or their email address. So they'll just be like, yo, instead of saying my name is Brian, because his name was Brian Johnson, but if your name is Brian Johnson, just like my name is Michael Jones, like of course my email is not michaeljones@gmail.com. Are you fucking kidding me? So Brian Johnson, he had the unfortunate thing of having BJ be his initials as well. So he's got to go say, he's like, hey, how you doing? I'm BJ 420, at whatever. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. My name is R02S. Anyway. And I have a question that maybe you could give me some advice with. I've lived in a small town all my life. There's nothing but cows, fields, and the nearest city is 30 minutes away, and it's not big at all. Did I mention I was found? Did I mention I am a Martian, and I was found by a family that lives in a small town, and I live as a slave in their barn. In their barn, they make me do many tasks. One thing is milking the cows. And I have never done this before on my native planet of Mars, being that we do not have any cows or any other cattle of any meat or kill, destroy the human race, meat or anyway. No. What the fuck was that? It's not even funny. It's fucking stupid. I'm going to continue with this as if you were not a robot and stop talking about your name, which is R02S. You're a fucking robot, man. You signed it, R02S. My name is R02S, and I have a question that maybe you could give me some advice with. I am related to RG3. He is a robot as well. He was programmed to throw a football for the Washington Redskins. Unfortunately, I have been jealous of him all my life because I am R02S and I was simply functioned with menial tasks such as sharpening pencils with my anus hole, my robot anus hole, which doubles as a pencil sharpener. I've lived in this small town all my life. There's nothing but cows, fields, and the nearest city is 30 minutes away. And it's not big at all. The only thing anybody seems to care about is the rodeo. And the only genre of music that is supported is country or indie alternative rock. Those are two kind of different genres in my opinion. Indie alternative rock, they fuck with that at the rodeo little town. Okay. So like all I like is Toby Keith and fucking Silver Sun pickups before they got signed. So sometimes I feel cursed for having a love for hip-hop, since I'm one of the few out here that understands it. So I guess what my question is, do you have any advice on how to break through this barrier that I seem to be facing? I've been rapping since middle school, made a mixtape on a cassette when I was 15, but it was stolen. Damn, you only had that one copy. You must be old. Or you're just from a small town. I don't know, man. You didn't say your age. I'm sorry. I used to have mixtapes on a cassette, and if it was stolen, that shit was gone. Made a few songs after that and killed some freestyles when I'm drunk with friends at parties, but I don't seem to be getting anywhere, even though I think I have mad potential. Anyways, hope to get a response from you. I've been listening to you, Herbal T, Watsky, DFD, ever since he was on the battle rap circuit and jamming some of EOM's beats for a while now. So it's safe to say that you and the whole group you run with inspire me. Thanks, man. Well, R02S, I appreciate the kind words at the end there, and I'm sorry for harping so much on the fact that you have a robot name. All I want to do is continue to harp on that. I want to give you advice as if you were a robot and tell you that that lane is wide open, man. The rapping robot lane has really not been. I can't think of a rapping robot. There was a rapping cat back in the day, a rapping animated cat called MC Scat Cat, who appeared on Paula Abdul's Opposites Attract. But besides that, I mean, they've had Tupac come back as a hologram. As far as a rapping robot, I'm trying to think if that was even something in an animated series or anything, but I don't think so. So I think you being a robot, you should probably take that. No, in all seriousness, man, your story is actually not far from me. I'm from a small town, and I love hip hop. You gotta not worry about what the people around you think. We're in a world that increasingly, day by day, is becoming more and more tied together by the internet. Whether it be social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever it is, people can get a lot of information and put out a lot of information on the World Wide Web, on the BBC. But I would recommend, in all seriousness, that you stop worrying too much about the local scene, because it seems to me that there is no local hip hop scene. And if you're a hip hop dude, I would just try to keep freestyling at parties like you were talking about. Keep making mixtapes like you were talking about. Once you have a song or a piece or some verses that you think are dope enough, put them on video, put them on audio, do whatever you can do to get them out there, man. Try to promote yourself on SoundCloud, YouTube, Twitter, whatever you can do, man. And if your shit's dope enough, the cream will rise to the crop. Granted, damn it. It's not as easy as some people think it is. Some people think that cream rises really fast. It takes a long time, man, and there's a lot of competition out there. But, you just got to keep your head up and persist. You got to continue. Yeah, so, man, just do your thing, man. Don't worry about the local scene, the local haters, the local indie rock robots. You know what I'm saying? Let them do their thing and you do your rapping. You know what I mean? All right, this is Hey Wax. It's Lamar from North Carolina. This may be a long email. I was still thinking about the robot shit. So stupid. Hey, Wax, it's Lamar from North Carolina. This may be a long email. It is. If it is too long, my bad. This may be a long email. If it is too long, my bad. Saying that, though, first off, sometimes y'all think that I can't read for shit, but a lot of times it's like, these fucking kids nowadays don't know how to fucking punctuate. Saying that there's no commas. Nobody ever uses commas anymore, man. How am I supposed to separate this shit? How am I supposed to know where to logically pause to make people know what I'm saying, Saying that, though, first off, keep doing the long rants on the podcast. Of course, after I said that, he's got a bunch of commas and shit. People aren't listening expecting to hear one-liners or... Wait, now I'm like looking at commas. Let me start over so I know what the fuck I'm reading. It's Lamar from North Carolina. This may be a long email. If it's too long, my bad. Saying that, though, first off, keep doing the long rants on the podcast. People aren't listening expecting to hear one-liners or skits. They just want to hear wax. Second, I don't drink, but I do smoke cigars, so I'm going to do Smoke-Free September. Awesome, man. Also, I have a recommendation. The Hammer. It's about the first deaf NCAA wrestling champion and first and only deaf UFC fighter. It's a really motivational movie. All right, so I don't see how that could be a bad thing to recommend. Unless he's a Nazi too. I say that because I haven't seen it, but that sounds awesome, man. God damn, that must be hard to be a UFC fighter if you can't hear a motherfucker coming. But it's a really motivational movie, according to Lamar from North Carolina. I also have a question. I listened to another podcast where both of the hosts are guys, and they mentioned frequently that male friends send them dick pics. So my question is, has a fan ever surprised you with a dick pic? Absolutely not. Thanks for reading this on or off the podcast. The connection you have with the fans is so much more than everyone else, and a big reason you're my favorite artist working. Well, I appreciate that very much, Lamar. I'll try to keep the podcast going and more fucking regularly than I've been doing, because that's really all I've been doing. I haven't put out any music recently, so all I got is the podcast, and I haven't been making it come first. Much like most of the girls that I've fought. Hey! Now, no. The answer to your question, no. I have not received any dick pics from any of my fans. And I come to think of it, I don't think I've ever received any dick pics from dudes in general. I've never seen a dick pic. I definitely... there was this... You said that the hosts are guys, and they mentioned that their friends send them dick pics. Like, I don't know... I hear stuff like that. I hear stories of like dudes that are friends doing kind of like gay shit like that, but I never had that with my group of friends. The group that I had in high school and college, the group of the friends that I have now, we never had that weird like frat boy gay shit that people do. I've never been involved with that, so I just don't understand that concept. So I appreciate that, man. The Hammer, deaf NCAA wrestling champion and first only deaf UFC fighter. I'm gonna watch that shit today, man. Thanks, Lamar. This next one's from Tyler. Yo, what up, Wax? I'll skip the praise and get right into it. So last night my band played at Rams Head Live for our second time, which is a huge venue for us. Being that we've only been playing out for like 6 months, Rams Head Live is in Baltimore, by the way, y'all. Being that we've only been playing out live for 6 months, we opened the show at 7 and they gave us 50 tickets to sell, which we only sold 48. Damn. So too short, eh? Too short. So we played our set and had a really good crowd for an opener. But at the end of the night, when I went to get paid, the booking agent said since we didn't sell 50 tickets, we didn't get paid. And I told him I'd pay for the 2 tickets we didn't sell in order to get paid. But apparently it was too late. First of all, you should have never fucking told him that. You should have just told him you sold the 50 and paid and gave him the money for that. I felt like we got fucked big time. I understand people have to make money, but if you're booking a really new band and they sell 48 tickets, I'd say that's pretty good, right? Anyway, I was just curious if you've ever been in situations like that where you've gotten fucked with money or taken advantage of by agents. I understand having to pay dues, but we made them almost $600 just to get told we didn't make anything. Thanks for reading, man. Sorry for such a long email, Tyler. All right, first of all, like I said, they told you to sell you 50 tickets and you get paid. You should have never told them that you only sold 48 and you were short 2. You should have just gave them the money for the 2 tickets and assumed that, you know, getting paid for those for that sale would easily pay for the 2 that you had to front. You know, for being together, for only playing out 6 months, honestly, to sell 48 tickets is really not that bad. And that whole pay to play thing, that whole like they give you tickets and you have to sell them in order to make any money, that's every city in America, probably in the world. I don't know the world scene too much as far as local rock clubs, but I was in a band for a long time, and I'm a rapper, and I've done a lot of club shows, and I've seen that shit happen. The real common one they make people do that around here is the Whiskey A Go-Go, which used to be known as this fucking legendary venue that the Doors came up at, is now really known as like the venue where they have 10 bands in a night and they start the show at 6 and like the first 3 bands are in high school and they do the same shit. They make them sell 50 tickets so they can get $75 or whatever. All that being said, you know, when it comes down to it, man, you know, that little amount of money isn't really worth making too big of a deal out of. I mean, say something. Don't be a bitch and tell them, like, look, man, you owe us some money. But keep in mind, especially for a place as big as Rams Head Live, $600 ain't that much money for them neither, man. You know, they got bartenders, they got security, they got fucking electric bill. They bought all that fucking equipment that you're playing out of. Like, $600 ain't shit to them. It's hard to run a music venue, man. It's hard to keep the lights on in a music venue. And also, like, if they made them $600, which really isn't making them much first of all, if they were gonna give you half of that, the $300, you know, in the long term, that's chump change. You know, they say, you know, you got sometimes, I don't know what the saying is. There's many sayings that like imply like something dollars and doesn't make sense or whatever, but. You know, if you're complaining about cents, you're never going to make dollars. And a lot of times those kind of things are what breaks bands up. You know, I'll see bands that, whether it's arguing with themselves or they're arguing really, really hard at the local club owner, and then the club owner's like, dude, I'm not going to fucking deal with you anymore. If you're arguing because I gave you $70 and you want $85, like, there's a lot of other bands, man. You didn't bring anybody to the show. You're not making me real money. If you're going to sit here and argue over $15, you're not worth dealing with. And then they'll never get to play that venue again. And, you know, my point being that it's not all about money, especially when you first start, man. When you first start, like, if you don't have necessarily the ground to stand on making the argument, sometimes it's best just to back off. I mean, granted, if you're getting totally fucked, you should say something. You know, in your case, you should have said something. But just always keep in mind that, it's more about being able to play. It's more important to do a good show. In that stage of the game, you know what I'm saying? So if you're not paying your bills with it yet, You know, look at every show as a learning experience. It's actually more important that 48 people, hopefully they came out, but it's actually more important that those people got to see you play. I mean, if you were good. If you sucked, maybe it was bad that they were there, because then they'd be like, oh, I'm never seeing these people again. Then next time you got to sell 50 tickets for Rams Head, everyone's going to be like, nope, nope, nope. And then you're going to go up to the owner with 10 tickets and be like, here's the other 40. Don't give a shit, don't have us back, blah, 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 whatever. All that was bullshit. But, Tyler, congratulations on playing the Rams Head Live. That's a really dope venue to play at. Yeah, congrats, man. And I think just don't take it to heart, man. It's small time money. It's chump change if you really want to make music for a living. All right, we got one more letter, and who is this letter from but the one, the only Raul Justice? Yes, yo, Wax. Sounds like the Warped Tour was a fun experience. I didn't get a chance to make it to one of the shows, but it's dope that you get to do this shit like that as a result pursuing. All right, Raul, that's not me being a dick. That's you left a couple words out, but I see what you're saying. I didn't get a chance to make it to one of the shows, but it's dope that you get to do shit like that as a result of pursuing your dreams. At least it seems like being on tour performing your music was your dream. Was it? I think this is like a series of questions in this. You know what? There's a bunch of questions that's kind of like broken up, so I'll just go ahead and answer this one. Yes. Being on tour performing music was always my dream. When I was a very little kid, when I was young, when I was really first starting, part of the dream was to be a rock star and to be on MTV and to be in Rolling Stone magazine and shit like that. Once I got older and started having regular jobs, having regular jobs that you hate actually takes your dream down a notch, because really it's just your dream to not have to work jobs like that, and that really became my dream. Rather than just doing the music, part of the dream was not having to work a regular job, but definitely performing my music and going on tour and traveling. This time we were in a bus and we got to go all over the country and shit. And yes, that's definitely part of my dream. And I made sure to think about it while I was out there, that I was living my dream, and it was great, man. Enjoy it while it lasts. You never know. And I've been reading a lot of biographies of people recently, especially entertainers. People like Buju Banton, for example, sold the most records in Jamaican history. I think that the whole thing was that he even beat Bob Marley for #1 singles or some weird shit like that in Jamaica. And he was huge here, huge around the world in the early 90s, mid 90s, even some in the early 2000s. And then I guess he just had a bunch of cocaine one day in the late 2000s. And now he's in jail for 10 or 20 years. I don't know what he, maybe there was some violence in it too. But this dude had everything. And now he's in fucking the penitentiary. Not only that, I had read the Wikipedia page. Don't ask me why. It made sense if I told you why, but I was reading the Wikipedia page of Kenny Loggins, big star in the 70s and 80s, and it was just going through all the success he had. He'd sold 17 million records in the 70s as Loggins in Messina. Then he went on in the 80s to be this big pop dude. He did Fly Into the Danger Zone. That was on the Top Gun soundtrack. Then he also did Footloose. He did all this fucking shit. He had so much success as a singer and so much success as a songwriter. Then it skipped to 1994, and all of a sudden it was then he filed for bankruptcy. And it's just God damn, you got to realize, unless you're Kurt Cobain or Biggie or somebody, life's pretty long. I might have went on the Warped Tour this summer, but 10 years from now, who the fuck knows what I'm going to be doing? So you got to enjoy it while you can. That was a little bit of a train derailment there. Let me go to the next question he had. I guess this was a continuation of the last question. Maybe I shouldn't have spoke so soon. Did you have goals in mind when you committed yourself to your music? Just curious, because I've never been someone who had goals, or even dreams for that matter. I just live life one day at a time, and apparently that is not normal, according to some people I've talked to. These questions seem pretty general to me. I always thought it was funny how you have young fans sending you questions or requests for advice on somewhat sensitive topics. I can only imagine the topics some of the emails you don't read on the podcast. What is the weirdest email you've ever received? All right, that was another question. He has a lot of questions in this one, but let me do short answers to all of them. Yeah, I had goals. I've been a pretty goal-oriented person, but I've never been really good at like really know, like when I was in the band, like our whole band like wanted to get big and shit like that, but we didn't really know the steps or write down the steps to do it. Not myself, at least. This trumpet player we had, Brian, if he's listening, shout out to Brian Hint. He was more like that. He kind of like was more like he wrote down the steps to achieving your goal, and then you do all those steps and then you achieve your goal. I think it's tough to be a goal-oriented person, because even if you achieve your goal, then if you're goal-oriented, what the fuck do you do after you achieve it? I've talked about that before. If you listen to my song, We Can't All Be Heroes, it discusses it. If you listen to my song, what's that other fucking song? Lofty Goals. I don't know. If you achieve your goal, sometimes you feel like you have to now create a bigger goal, when in reality, you should be happy that you achieved your goal, just like you're saying, living your life one day at a time. I mean, I could even go further than that. This shit, another thing I've been reading about recently is just really living your life. Forget one day at a time, just living your life in the present, just in the exact moment that you're in, rather than like always thinking about everything that you do is based on the future, And the reasons you do it is based on stuff that happened in the past. Like just fucking live right now. Look around. Look at all the shit around you. And if you fucking step out of your brain every once in a while, like what I try to do is I just act like I'm taking my brain out of my head. Like I physically like put my hand on my face and act like I'm taking my brain out. And you can see all your thoughts leave your head. And then you just look around. And especially if you live in a cool place like Venice and you're walking around the boardwalk or walking around outside looking at palm trees, it can be a really, really positive experience just to reflect for a second, or like not reflect, I guess, just to fucking be in the moment and look around you. Use your senses rather than your brain. Use your smell things, look at things, listen to things. You know what I mean? That's what the beauty of music is. Sometimes I get fucked up recently. Not fucked up as in drinking or drugs or anything. I get fucked up when I'm listening to music because I can't pay attention to it. And it's because I'm constantly thinking. And, you really have to just be feeling and in the moment to really enjoy music. And I think that's important, man. I think living in the moment is important. All right, let's move on to what is the weirdest email you've ever received. I've received a lot of weird ones, man. Sometimes people email me and they, like, make up nonsensical things, like, just to try to be funny. And sometimes it's hilarious. Like, I've had a couple where I've read them, but sometimes people just ain't that funny. And they, sometimes people are 12 years old and they're trying to be funny and it's not. But I couldn't tell you what's the weirdest email I've ever received. I've definitely had many people that are like, yo, I live in North Dakota, want to come out here, hang out? And I'm just like, nah, dog. Good on that. All right, realistically, this is continuing Raul Justice's email. It's a pretty long email. Realistically, people who send you emails don't know you very well, including myself. But I'm guessing they feel like they can relate to you because of the words and thoughts in your music. I ain't hating. I mean, I get it. Life before becoming an adult is a very confusing time in our lives. Shit, even as a grown-ass man, I still don't really know what the fuck I'm doing most of the time. Hey, I couldn't agree with that sentiment more often. Actually, life is a motherfucker, he says. But let me digress and say that he said, even as a grown-ass man, I still really don't know what the fuck I'm doing most of the time. The delusion is that as you get older, you know more. That's the delusion. When in reality, as most old people will tell you, the older you are, really the less you know. And the more you work, dude, the more you work on music, the more you write songs, and the more you do know, really the less you know. I don't know if that makes sense, but it means less you know. All right, lately I've been living by the, quote, fake it till you make it, unquote, ideology. And I'm starting to think everyone somewhat lives their lives that way. Seems to work pretty well. Do you or have you ever used that mindset? I think you mentioned once that you have a few drinks and embrace the, quote, this motherfucker ain't shit, unquote, mindset. That's a good one. I've used it in job interviews, sans the alcohol. Okay, yeah. Yeah, he's talking about the story that I was talking about specifically was when I got signed to Def Jam, me and my manager, Brian Washington, before we had this meeting with this really, really big music executive. I just say it was L.A. Reid. That's who signed me. I don't give a fuck. Before we had this meeting at this Beverly Hills hotel bungalow, we got there early. Of course we got there early because, you never know traffic in LA. If you have an important meeting, you aim to get there like 45 minutes early just in case. And if you get there early, you just fucking sit around and wait, So we had time and we had a couple shots of tequila at the bar. And what me and Brian always say is like, if you're intimidated by somebody at a meeting, just like go the opposite way in your mind. Not only try not to be intimidated, but think, this dude ain't shit. Fuck this dude. Who the fuck is this fucking guy? Just think that kind of shit in your head. And I think that usually, I guess alcohol helps in that case. But even if you just think that, I think it'll help. And he says that Raul Justice says he's used it in job interviews before. So, hey, maybe that's some actual good advice from the Waxes podcast, right? Be interested to know if you got the job, Raul. We'll see. If it was the job for fucking sheriff of East LA. He got the job. Raul Justice got the job of sheriff of East LA by using that mindset. So, just take that to heart, kids. You can do anything you fucking want and put your mind to it. All right. Continuing on, just only a little bit more now. In your podcast, you've mentioned a few big names you've met or done business with. I can only imagine the stress that comes along with meeting or doing business with high-profile people in the industry, although you may be immune to that feeling now. That was kind of a continuation of what he was saying before. Anyway, looking forward to some new music, Wax. Keep putting out your podcasts, even if they are not really on schedule. People will always listen. I know I will. Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Justice. Thank you very much. And I will continue to put out Wax's podcast as I'm glad that people listen to it, And if you have any I'll say, if you have any actual advice for me as far as things I should do on the podcast, even though usually when people fucking send me shit like this, I just don't do it because I'm too lazy. But if you have any suggestions for like things to do on the podcast, maybe I'll maybe I'll read them and not do them. All right, so peaceforwax@gmail.com and be safe out there.